Hi, and welcome to Hot Tips for Revising, a Student Learning Commons writing workshop. This workshop is best if you have already written your rough draft, but want to make sure that your writing is developed, organized, and strong overall. Before we start, I want to acknowledge that the Student Learning Commons, which is part of Simon Fraser University, resides on the ancestral, unceded, and rightful lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, and Coquitlam nations. Today, I will cover a quick three-stage approach to strategically revise if you happen to be on a time crunch. I will go over some first order and second order writing concerns. And last, I will finish with a proofreading plan. Writing is a process that happens in stages. So it makes sense to approach your revision in stages as well. So I'll break down those stages into first order and second order concerns for revising. And then, like I said, finish with a discussion on proofreading. Breaking down these steps is helpful because we do often end up perhaps only proofreading when we really actually needed to revise. So we have a three-stage approach to strategic revision. This helps to avoid perfectionism and to risk not finishing your assignment. But revision is uh, best used if you have already completed a rough draft. Otherwise, you will end up revising every word or sentence as you write, and that can be both time-consuming and frustrating. So revision, and what I will be primarily focusing on in this workshop, focuses on those first order concerns. So the development of your essay. We'll be discussing the purpose of your writing, the audience of whom you're writing to, and the strength and development of your argument. We'll also look at organization, both within the entire document and the paragraphs themselves, and then connections throughout your paper. Is your theme or thesis consistent? And do you have strong transitions between your paragraphs? These concerns ensure that your writing flows and that your arguments are strong. Editing focuses on those second order concerns, such as sentence structure, transitions within paragraphs, your style, your word choice, and your concision. Editing ensures that your writing is clear. I will be touching on this very, very briefly today, but there is an additional Student Learning Commons workshop that focuses on the three C's: concision, coherence, and clarity. Lastly, proofreading is a line-by-line review. It focuses on spelling, grammar, mechanics, and formatting. This stage is important. It polishes your writing. But of the three stages, it is the least important and should be the least amount of time spent. A lot of people do tend to focus primarily on proofreading once they've written their first draft. It's easier than the revising and the editing, which can be time consuming and often involve a fair amount of rewriting. But the revision and the editing are what actually make our paper and our writing stronger and clearer, and so are more important than proofreading. All right, I will address these first order concerns first. So one of the first order concerns, focusing on development, is the purpose of your writing. So when we're students, we often feel that we're writing just, because we have to. This is the assignment. We have to write this in order to get a grade and complete the course. So try to think beyond that. Think about the internal purpose of your writing. What are you trying to communicate, and to whom are you trying to communicate? So there are various types of assignments that you might have, such as those on the left of this slide. And if you've got one of those, make sure that you're answering the purpose question, which is on the right. The prompts on the right are meant to answer the question of why you are writing this type of assignment. Why is this topic important? What do you want your reader to learn? So if you're telling a story, well, why? What's the plot? What's the theme of this story? Are you describing an activity or process? Well, to what end? What is the value of this? Are you answering a question? Where is that leading? Are you testing a hypothesis? What is that going to show? Are you analyzing or evaluating the work of someone else? Why is that significant? What are we going to learn? Or are you proving an argument? So, what is your position or your thesis? And why is it important to make that argument? You may also want to consider your audience as you write. Often, when we write, we get wrapped up in our own thinking. And so, revision is the time to think about who your audience is, and how they're going to read your work, and what it is that you need or want them to know. So at university, you may have a variety of audiences. This can depend on the type of paper that you're writing and the level that you're writing at. You are often writing to your professor. They're likely a specialist who knows more than you. So for this, you may not need to explain everything, but you do still need to demonstrate your expertise on the subject and to show them that you've done your research. Sometimes you might be writing to your peers, so they will know roughly as much as you. So you'll need to evaluate which knowledge to share and which assumptions to explain and which not to explain. Or you might be writing to a non-specialist, for example, if you're writing in business or perhaps proposals. If that's your audience, then you'll need to consider what they might know and which assumptions to explain. Argumentation is another first order concern. When arguing, you present a claim. This is the statement that is being argued. You will also need to present data or facts or evidence to back up or support your argument. Sometimes there's a clear logical connection, so a fact will logically and clearly support a claim, and so no further explanation from you, the writer, is needed. But more often, as a writer, you do need to supply what is called a warrant. That is, you need to explain how and why this particular piece of evidence that you're providing is good support for your specific claim. Warrants determine whether the stated reasons or data support the given claim. So when you're writing out claims, you will often assume, your readers are intelligent, so they might be able to figure out the connection. But you also have to recognize that as the writer, it is your job to make sure that everything in your essay is clear to your readers. When arguing, you may want to use what is called the Talman method. It breaks your arguments down into 6 component parts, shown on this slide. In the Talman method, every argument begins with the 3 fundamental parts: the claim, the grounds, and the warrant. A claim is the assertion that the authors would like to prove to their audience. So it is, in other words, your main argument. The grounds of an argument are the evidence and facts that help to support that claim. Finally is the warrant, which is either implied or preferably explicitly stated. It's the assumption that links the grounds to the claim. The other three elements in this method, the backing, the qualifier, and the rebuttal, they're not fundamental to a Talman argument, but they may be added as necessary. Using these elements wisely can help you to construct full and nuanced arguments. So a backing refers to any additional support of the warrant. So like I said, sometimes that warrant is implied, and then therefore the backing just provides support for the warrant by giving perhaps a specific example that justifies that warrant. A qualifier can show that a claim might not be true in all circumstances. Words such as presumably or some or many can help your audience to understand that you know that there are instances where your claim may not be correct. And a rebuttal is an acknowledgement of another valid view of the situation. Including a qualifier or a rebuttal in an argument helps to build your ethos or your credibility. When you acknowledge that your view isn't always true, or when you provide multiple views of a situation, you help to build an image of a careful and unbiased thinker, rather than someone who is just blindly pushing for a single interpretation of the situation. If you are writing an argumentative essay, your overall goal is to prove your thesis statement using evidence and analysis. This evidence and analysis is presented in your body paragraphs. So each body paragraph will need to relate directly back to the thesis. This helps you to avoid going off topic, and it helps to show the reader the relevance of the evidence that you have presented. One way that you can accomplish this is through effective keyword repetition. Now, keep in mind, I am saying keyword repetition. It's important to recognize that this is different than just repeating random words or repeating your ideas over and over without evidence. Readers sometimes will need keywords repeated in order to follow the progression of your ideas. And really, this is how keywords become keywords, through effective repetition. So in the example on slide, notice how elements of the thesis statement are repeated in the claims. Your thesis includes the keywords environmental impact. Your claims include the keywords environmental destruction, climate change, and environmentally destructive. So when writing out your own argument, try doing this process of keyword repetition. Write out your thesis statement and each claim that you make to support your argument. Identify the key words in your statement. Give each a different idea, a different number or a different color. And then ensure that each claim repeats keywords from the thesis in the claims, and that also you are not adding any new ideas that are not covered in your thesis. These keywords can then appear in the topic sentences of each paragraph, and I will address those in a moment. But you want that thesis statement and those topic sentences to form an outline for your argument. Basically, if the reader was to only read the topic sentences, they would still be able to understand the core of your argument. One way to ensure that your paper is organized and that your structure is logical and not missing any logical connections is to write a reverse outline. So you do this by listing really only the topic sentence or the main point from each paragraph. If you find that you have too many main points in a paragraph, then you likely have too much information in each paragraph and they will need to be revised. Once you've written your reversed outline, you can ask questions such as, does this structure make sense? Is there anything that I am missing, or is there anything that's in the wrong place? And am I making any major leaps here? You also want to make sure that the material in the paragraph is connected to the topic sentence. If your topic sentence says one thing and the evidence in the paragraph says another, then you're going to need to reorganize that material, maybe change around your paragraphs, or perhaps change your topic sentence. Another important element in your paper's cohesion or organization is the topic sentence. This is related to paragraph structure. The topic sentence is usually the first sentence in a paragraph. It explains your main point or your purpose. It is sometimes also not the first sentence in a paragraph if the first sentence happens to be a transition from a previous paragraph. But in general, it should be the first sentence in the paragraph. And when you're writing these, try to consider these questions. So is the content in the topic sentence related to the content in the rest of the paragraph? Does the topic sentence summarize that main point of the paragraph? Does the topic sentence make a clear connection to your thesis? And does it clearly support your thesis? You may also want to consider if the topic sentence answers the assignment instructions, making sure that the claims and arguments that you're providing are actually relevant. And then also, can you make your topic sentence clearer and more direct? There are two aspects that will contribute to the smooth flow of ideas: cohesion and coherence. So cohesion is a sense of flow. It shows the relationship between sentences. So basically how easily a reader moves from sentence to sentence. Coherence is a sense of the whole. So when all the sentences in a piece of writing add up to create a complete picture. You can help to achieve coherence by showing the connections and relationships between your ideas. Transitions and transitional phrases can help with this. So you will need transitions between paragraphs, and sometimes between sentences in a paragraph. And if you have longer works, you may also need them between sections. All right, let's move on to some of those second order concerns. So editing helps to improve your writing style and it makes sure that your writing is clear and readable. There are three main areas in writing. There's your sentence structure. So this involves logic and length. Make sure you have no sentence fragments or run-on sentences. There's sentence style. So this involves clarity and your voice. You want to ensure your writing is clear and easy to understand. Talk simply, avoid jargon, and in general, active voice is encouraged in most forms of writing. And then there are word choices and concise writing. So this is the removal of unnecessary words and making sure that each word it makes sense and is appropriate for what you're writing. You want to make sure that your tone is also appropriate. Is it formal and academic, or are you perhaps permitted to be less formal in whatever it is you're writing? Once you've edited, you can then proofread. So proofreading is a sentence by sentence review where you look at grammar, spelling, punctuation, mechanics, and formatting. I'm not going to go over those specific second order or lower order concerns in this workshop, but you can visit the Student Learning Commons Writing Help page for more information and resources. But I am going to go over some strategies for proofreading. And it's helpful to have a plan for this. Without a plan, you sometimes end up reading and rereading your drafts, but actually skipping over the mistakes that you make. Before you proofread, do your revision and your editing. Take care of those first order concerns first. They are going to do the most to improve the strength of your essay. It can also help to give yourself a little break from your paper, to approach it with fresh eyes. And this can help you from skipping over the mistakes that you may have been making. Also, make sure that you revise for concision before you proofread. Um, revise your sentences to make them stronger and more streamlined. Remove those unnecessary words. There's no point in proofreading words that you are going to eventually delete. And make a list of any common mistakes. You can generate this by reviewing feedback from previous assignments, and then keep a watch out for these errors when you're proofreading. There are some specific proofreading strategies that can be really helpful. If you're able to, print off your draft and make changes by hand. One of the most effective ways to proofread is to read your paper aloud, slowly. Your ears will often catch what your eye misses. If you can use a blank piece of paper to cover up the line below so you don't skip things. Or you can even read your paper backwards, sentence by sentence. This can help you from getting or prevents you from getting lost in the flow, and it means you're only focusing on a sentence at a time rather than the whole idea or paragraph. And then focus on what's important. So these are going to be your common writing mistakes, as well as those that interrupt meaning. And then move on to what's least important. Those things that just help to improve the aesthetics. When you get back to your computer to make these corrections, you can use a search function to look for particular kinds of mistakes. And always end with a spell check. But remember that a computer spell checker isn't going to catch certain typos. For example, form versus from. So you can't use it in place for a thorough human check. You may also want to use an AI program such as Grammarly. Grammarly has gotten infinitely better in the last few years, but it is still far from perfect. And so it is still important to learn these strategies and to recognize your common mistakes and how to correct them. So to summarize this proofreading plan, wait until you have finished all major changes. Wait until your draft is complete, your final draft. Print out your best draft if you can and read it aloud slowly. Read the essay backwards to see the parts instead of the whole. Double check your citations and reread those assignment instructions to make sure you don't miss anything. There are some additional editing and proofreading resources available on the Student Learning Commons website that can give you more information on how to spot errors in punctuation, grammar, or spelling. So those final tips. Reading aloud, reading from a printed copy, and reading your work backwards. You can also book an in-person or virtual Student Learning Commons consultation for any editing and revising support. And then lastly, if you need more assistance, make sure to make use of the library and the Student Learning Commons. The library can give you personal assistance with finding resources, narrowing down your search, and using the correct citation style. The Student Learning Commons can help you to integrate sources into your paper. And we offer handouts, tip sheets, and one-on-one writing consultations at any stage of your writing process, understanding your assignments, to outlining, to drafting, to editing, and revising. Thank you, and good luck with revision.